Okay, what was your reason for becoming a chair?
I think you have to want to do it, right? I mean, I'm assuming that in most cases the chair will probably have been on the board, so therefore they will be on the board for the right reason. And then the issue then is, do you want to become chair, and do you think you can do it? And I think that's about two things for me. That's about the competence and the confidence to be a chair, okay? And the decision might be helped by, say, having a strong board and a strong CEO, right? But you have to know, I suppose, that you know, that if there's a change required, you are the person who can maybe drive that change, right? And hopefully you will have seen a chair, or maybe even two chairs at work while you've been on a board, and will have some sense of what's required in the role. I would also suggest, maybe as one other thing as well, here in the Carmichael Centre we have the role of a deputy chair, and I think that's a great idea. I think it's the first board that I've been on where that role has actually been a labelled role. There might have been sort of an unspoken deputy chair where people might say, well, there's the person who's going to take the next role. But if you're actually a formal deputy chair, you at least have a sense of preparing for becoming the chair, and you also may end up maybe having to chair 2 or 3 board meetings during that time anyhow, and that helps you decide then if you believe the chair is for you.
So it's almost like an apprenticeship for being the chair.
Yes, it is. You will learn a huge amount. Yeah.
What makes a good or a bad chair, do you think?
Okay, I'll go on what makes a good chair, because I would like to be critical of a chair. Maybe you can assume that the opposite of what I'm saying is what makes a bad chair. Okay, I would say the most important thing is understanding the role, right? And I think understanding the role from 2 perspectives. One in relation to the chair's relationship with the board itself, and the other one would be the chair's relationship with the CEO. And I think you have to sort of understand what your role is. And I think particularly in terms of knowing that you're not the CEO, you are the chair, right? And they are very different roles, and there are particularly different roles in the voluntary sector. It's not like you're an executive chair who's been paid an amount of money to operate in a certain way. You're a voluntary chair in the charity sector. And the CEO is the paid role designed to operate the organisation in a particular way. And the chair's role is very different in terms of a strategic role rather than an operational role. Okay, there's a phrase that I used to use in the business called "now get off the pitch," and it was very much around where the manager of maybe a sporting team, like a football team, is on the pitch giving instructions, but then he's got to get off. And you got to stay off the pitch and then let the people do their role. It's not your role to be on the pitch at that time. The other thing I think is important for a chair is that you're actually looking at the right information, that the operational and financial indicators are supposed to be supporting a strategy. And certainly one of the most helpful things I have seen is where I think most chairs or boards will get a report from the chief executive, and that report should be compiled under the strategic plan headings, and that ensures then that the board strategy and what the CEO is doing in the organisation are aligned in most cases.
Okay, what are the skills and talents required to be a chair?
Okay, I think this is a really good question for someone to ask themselves before they decide to become a chair, because if you don't, you will be dropped in at the deep end. I mean, you need to be able to chair a meeting. You need to be able to chair a board meeting. You need to be able to get input from everybody. You need to be able to prioritise issues for discussion, encourage constructive debate. You then need to be able to manage a debate and a conversation. And we all know just from doing that how, if you want to get people to stop talking, if you feel that the conversation is being exhausted, how do you stop it? How do you summarise what's been spoken? You're also maybe trying to seek consensus in as much as you can. I think, again, probably in terms of different from the commercial world, in the voluntary and charity sector, you really are looking for a board to be agreed, particularly on a strategic direction or a major decision, rather than having maybe a majority of one. Right? It's not great. So you are trying to seek consensus. You need to be able to manage time. I think people need to know if they're coming to a board meeting, it's not going to go for as long as it takes, that there's some sense of this is going to end, okay? I think there's a certain element of just, I won't say being thick-skinned, but you do need to be able to accept feedback. and that's positive and constructive feedback. You know, saying at the end of every meeting, that was a brilliant meeting, Chair, it might massage your ego, but unless you're learning how to make the next meeting better, then you're not really being that good a chair, because you want to keep improving. You also do need to be able to perform a chief executive review. It's a crucial part of being a chair, and not everybody knows coming in that once a year you've got to sit down with the chief executive and review a performance. But it needs to be done in a certain way, and developmental needs and training needs, just like anybody else's appraisal. But it does need to be done. And also you do need to be able to both drive and appreciate a board evaluation. How are we performing as a board? And as chair, what can I do to make sure the next board evaluation is better than the one we did previously? So there are lots of sort of skills and talents that you need, and it's a good idea just to ask yourself those, because someone might approach you and say, we think you'd make a great chair, but you just might need to check that you can tick some of those boxes yourself before you take over.
Great.